Hey guys, it's Mrs. Pajoli. I just wanted to go over a couple of questions and a couple of suggestions to help you out with 14.2 on Go Math. We are starting lines of best fit. Go Math calls them trend lines, so I'm going to try to remember to use that phrase. And it is definitely one of the more difficult things that we do this year. But if you remember how to write the equation for a line and find the slope and identify a y-intercept, then you're probably in good shape. So in the first section of 14.2 on Go Math, in the explain section, and that's the one with the purple dot, you might come across a question similar to this. I've noticed that some of the questions change numbers from time to time. So the problems that I have in here are probably very similar to what you're going to see. Some of them might be exactly the same, but other problems might have different numbers. So this problem is from the explain section where the purple dot is in Go Math. And it's asking you to write an equation for the trend line. So here. So the scatter plot and trend line show the relationship between the number of chapters and the total number of pages for several books. And they want us to write an equation for this line. So you can see the x values at the bottom of the graph represent the chapters. And the y values on the side represent pages. And we know in order to write the equation of a line, we need to know the slope and the y-intercept. So there are 2 points within this explain question that they use, but they use it using the slope formula, which I know is a little confusing for some of you. So you can use the slope formula, but you know I like tables. So I would drop my 2 points into this table here, putting the x values on the left and the y values on the right. I would then figure out my change in the y values. So going from 50 to 170 is a change of 120. And then going from 5 to 17 is a change of 12 for the y's. And when I find the change in y and I divide it by the change in x, I get a slope of 10. So you can easily see from the graph that the y-intercept is 0. All right, so it's really easy to tell in this problem, so you don't even really need to do this work that I'm showing you here, but this is what you would have to do if you weren't sure exactly what the y-intercept was. But for the purposes of this problem, I can take any point in the graph. I can take one of the 2 points I have. So I would choose 550 just because those numbers are a little bit easier, and that's what I have here. And I'm going to substitute those values for x and y into y equals mx plus b. And I'm also going to incorporate the slope that I just found. So y is equal to 50, the slope is 10, x is 5, and b is what I'm going to be looking for. So when I solve that equation, I get a y-intercept of 0, which again was very easy to tell on this graph without doing that work. So for this problem, it really wouldn't be necessary. So over here, using a slope of 10 and a y-intercept of 0, I would get the equation for this line, y equals 10x. So that's just a little bit more of an explanation for that one problem in the explain section on Go Math. Once you get to the red whistle section, there are a couple of questions that I don't think you'll have any problems with, but just a couple of helpful hints. So if I take a look at number 1, and again, your number 1 might be a little bit different than mine, but I have a feeling they're the same. So my suggestion for that problem is to start your line of best fit or the trend line at 0. Make the y-intercept equal to 0. When you get to number 2, use the points that they gave you to find the slope. So within this problem here, they're giving you 2 points here. 0, 0, the origin, and then 16, 1.34. So they're asking you to write an equation for a line of best fit. So this is pretty similar to the equation that I went over just previously. All right, so again, you can set up your table. You can substitute in your first point, 0, 0, your second point, 16 and 1.34. Find your change in y, divide it by your change in x, and it gives you some additional information down here. They want you to round the slope to the nearest thousandths if necessary. So you should already be able to tell you have a y-intercept of 0 again. So you just need to find the slope using those 2 points in the table. Again, make sure you round to the nearest thousandths. That's 3 decimal places if you need to. And then you're going to substitute into the equation y equals mx plus b to write that equation for this trend line. So that's number 2. If you need to, I would look back at that question in the purple dot because it's very similar. Moving on, 4, 5, and 6, I don't think you'll have any difficulty with. Number 7, it's asking you to find a certain temperature for a certain percent of humidity. So if you take a look at the table at the top, you have humidity percentage along the top and your apparent temperatures along the bottom. The first point in the table is 0.64, so you can tell that that first row are your X's and the second row are your Y's. And the trend line is already graphed for you. All the points are plotted for you, and they even give you the equation of the trend line. So it's asking you to predict the temperature, which is a Y value, if the humidity is 90%. So one of the ways you can do it, you can certainly substitute in the 90% for X and solve for Y, but it's really just as easy to go to 90% on the X-axis and draw a line all the way up to the trend line and then look to see what that corresponding Y value would be. To me, that's really the easier way to do it. But you can always, if you're not sure, you can always substitute in the X value into the equation if that's what they give you to solve for Y, or if they happen to give you the Y value, you can substitute in to solve for X. But to me, this is probably the easiest way to do it. Skipping to number 10, we want to kind of do the same thing that we were just talking about. The problem here says the scatter plot shows the recorded length of a dinosaur bone versus the estimated weight of the dinosaur, and approximately how much would a dinosaur with a bone length of 150 centimeters weigh. So one thing that makes this a little bit different, I'm going to see if I could take away this trend line. Okay, the problem here originally doesn't have a line of best fit or a trend line drawn in. So you almost kind of have to picture what a trend line would look like on here. Okay, and I'm only starting at 0 again because you're talking about the bone lengths and the weight. So obviously if you don't have any bones, it can't have a weight. So 0, 0 makes sense for this problem. So if I kind of imagine a trend line in there and then do the same thing that I just did with the last problem, they're asking us to figure out the number of tons for 150 centimeters. So if I go to 150 centimeters on my X-axis, which is approximately right here, and I do the same thing I did before. I'm trying to get used to my new iPad here. And I draw a line, and I draw a line going up from 150 centimeters. I can see where that is going to fall, which is approximately right here. And if I go across, I can see what that Y value would be. So again, a lot of these problems, especially in this section, the problems are probably the same, but the numbers might not be exactly the same. So if you were given different numbers, kind of use my problem as a guide to help you with those other problems in that evaluate section. All right, so I'm hoping that this helps you out. I know this is definitely one of the more difficult types of topics this year, so please don't lose sleep over this. But if you have any specific questions that you want to ask me, you could screenshot it, take a picture, send it to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Or you can kind of hold off until we meet on Zoom. We are going to meet on Zoom this week. I think I scheduled it, or I'm going to schedule it for Wednesday to Thursday. So by now you probably know when it's going to be. All right, I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.